this is NewNoiseWorks. He is here to talk about being an environmental activist in game development and also the game that he is currently working on. So feel free, like, you have the platform. This is also my first time like interviewing someone on my stream, so I apologize if it's a little bit rough.
No, that's totally fine. This is my first time being interviewed on a stream or whatever, so that's you can blame everything on me is basically what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So hey, what's going on, everybody? I have the chat on the left hand side, so
perfect.
I'll try to be a chatter. I'll tell you a little about myself. NewNoiseWorks is my handle. That's kind of what I'm naming my game studio. I guess you can call me New Noise. My real life name is Anand, A-N-A-N-D, if that helps. But noise, new noise, any of that stuff is fine. I've been a programmer for about 13 years, mostly in web development. So a lot of what's stereotypical there. A lot of work in startups, some work in advertising. I also spent about 6 months working in Michael Bloomberg's company, but we don't have to talk about that.
Bloomberg.
Yeah, that guy. What's his up, down, left, right, A, B do in your game? Nothing yet, but I think I get sued by Konami if I do something that way. No, I'm kidding. I don't think they'd sue you, but anyway, so that is me in a nutshell. A web programmer. I started getting into game development about 2 years ago, maybe summer of 2017, and that's when I started Twitch streaming as well, twitch.tv/NewNoiseWorks. That's me, yeah.
Oh my gosh, touring. All right, thank you. Sorry, thank you for the raid of 43. Hello. Oh God, this New Noise making everything exciting. Like the moment I have like a planned stream, people are like popping in here. So good morning, everyone. I'm sure you've seen me in Touring's chat. I'm Baela. I'm an environmental edutainer. We are interviewing NewNoiseWorks. He is an environmental activist and game developer, and he's making a game that funds fighting against climate denialism and all that fun stuff. So that's why my alerts aren't on, because like we're having like a interview thing. So he just has the floor. Touring, thank you so much for the raid. I appreciate you, and I loved your DC streams yesterday. I hope you have safe travels and everything going on today. So I'm not sure if you follow him, Noise. So Touring, he's often in the politics category, and he's literally been holding up to his name. He like traveled all the way to DC to like stream and interview people, and now he's going to Iowa. Right? You're going to Iowa now? To canvas for Bernie. So he's
awesome.
Yeah. Oh, he's not going to see this. He was on his phone. Oh, well, I'll DM him and say thank you.
Well, I know about him now. Touring sounds cool. I definitely give him a follow.
Yeah.
It's up to anybody going out to Iowa for Bernie. I'm just giving money and staying in New York, so I really, really appreciate that.
Oh yeah, he's on it. All right, cool. So sorry about that. All right, you have the floor. Take over my stream.
Yeah. Cool. So I was just telling Baela and everyone that I've been a programmer for mostly web development and startups and stuff for about 13 years. 2 years ago, I got into game development, started Twitch streaming, twitch.tv/NewNoiseWorks. I'll try to keep the advertisement slow.
I'll post your link.
And I got into game development, and I started Twitch streaming just to kind of like learn with other people. And if you are interested in game development, no matter like where you are as a programmer, I would kind of recommend thinking about Twitch streaming while you learn. Like it was, even for me, like you learn by other people teaching you and vice versa. So it's really, it was an interesting thing. About a year ago, I decided to focus on like one game project, pretty much about a year and a half ago, right when the IPCC report came out. And it was this project. I'm calling it The Promised Land. You can go to playthepromisedland.com. And there's like a little prototype available. It's really just a rough prototype. But the idea is to basically make a Stardew Valley Harvest Moon-esque game, but make it an MMO and put it more in like a future utopia kind of a setting. And then make it free to play and have 60% of assets at the point of purchase go directly to groups. And I am trying to seek out groups and empower groups that are mostly focused on climate journalism and and climate activism. So, planting trees is great. Recycling and disaster relief is also very necessary. But I really want to put money towards things that will position the strongest, really kind of cultural environment for things like a Green New Deal to not just pass, but also be reinforced. Because, as a angry dude in his 30s, and there are apparently a bunch of us now in America, I saw Obamacare pass in the form that it did, and then just have no one in the media really support it. And there's so many actors really go after it, and not really give it a true interpretation, I think, of what would happen if, say, in Indiana steps out of the exchange, yada, yada. So I do really think that we need a stronger apparatus as far as the media goes. I'm not going to start talking about fake news or mainstream media ills, but I really think journalism, for instance, has been kind of financially crippled. There's a lot of evidence towards that. I know I kind of talk and ramble a lot, and I also ignore my own chat sometimes accidentally, so I don't want to go too fast. If anybody has any questions.
Oh yeah, I ramble all the time. I'll be like, okay, here's our idea for the day, and then we just we just go.
I do get yelled at sometimes because I'm technically in the programming stream, and people sometimes want to see you program. Quick shot friend, excuse me. How'd you build your website? This looks really good. Thank you so much. So I'm a web developer, so that is an advantage. I used a template. If you're into web development at all, I use something called React as not the programming language, but the main library, and a template, and I kind of just put things together slowly. I appreciate that. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, and Baela, of course, feel free to stop me. But yeah, I'm a big rambler. Anyway, so I got some notes though. So that's the game. I can show the game a little bit later. If you want, you can download it, and we could go into the town together and see each other, but there's not too much in terms of functionality outside of that. But I can talk about that later. I do kind of want to focus on just why I want to finance climate journalism as well as climate activism and what that would mean. Baela answers about 4% of our questions, and honestly, there we go.
Let's see. Penguin's asking, do you have a working beta version, or is it still being structurally built?
Yes, so there is a working beta version. As long as you have a Windows or a Linux machine, you can try it out. Do you allow links if I hit enter here?
Yeah, go for it. You can post all the links. Sorry, I was pulling up your site. I'm like, okay, I wonder if I were to download it right now, if it would have impact on the stream.
Probably not. It's a very
It's little. Okay.
Yeah,
I should have done this last night, but I mean, Iran happened last night, so.
Oh my God, yeah. I saw. I think you tweeted me, and I was gonna I wanted to respond, but then the second I hit the button, I saw that Iran happened. We can talk about that too.
Yeah, I think we were all really busy last night. I was like, okay, cool. I scraped this overlay together this morning because I was all right, I'm going to take a couple hours last night, make a nice overlay. And then Twitter's and I'm like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
All right,
so cool. No doubt. I was bullied into supporting Linux on my stream. So, you Linux users are, good-hearted. Anyway, I'll keep it up on Linux. I was just responding to something in your chat.
Oh, yeah, go for it. I'm downloading the game right now, so.
Oh, perfect. All right, cool. I'll put your stream up so I know what you're doing, because technically I have it on too. Anyway, so I did want to kind of explain why climate journalism and why just talk about journalism in general. Journalism's kind of been slowly defunded in terms of how things capitalism funds things, in terms of what the banks want to invest in journalism. Pretty much obviously the internet is one big epoch, but it's really been happening since maybe the early 90s with the invention of CNN and a 24-hour news network, where all of a sudden just instead of, it used to be maybe tens of thousands, 5-figure kind of, that might be a lot, but maybe a low 5-figure amount of different journalistic outfits kind of networking each other. Everyone's reading their own stuff and sharing stories when necessary, right? From the local ground all the way up to a federal newspaper like the New York Times or Washington Post. But since CNN happens, all of a sudden investors realize, well, we can have the same amount of reach to get the same amount of advertising dollars via television. And, it's MSNBC. After that, it's CNBC. It's all sorts of Fox News. Eventually, at the end of the millennium, these channels start sprouting up, and it's because they're more profitable than newspapers. So newspapers, print journalism is slowly being defunded kind of behind the scenes, and the things that are going away are like investigative reporting, like the money you pay to a journalist to go stay in a ratty hotel and do the work, right?
Yeah.
So like that kind of stuff is being slowly defunded, and then the internet comes.
And now we have a lot of access to everything.
Yeah, and it's not just that, but with this current epoch of finance, and as someone who worked in tech, I'm familiar with venture capital as kind of like a tertiary connection to what I do. Those people aren't, they very often come in with the premise of a finance loan, and then they say, make me the CEO of your company. For example, Jared Kushner did this with the New York Observer, I think, prior to the presidential run with Trump and all that. And they don't know anything about newspapers. They're just trying to make more of a profit. So if you're wondering why pretty much every website is just a big pile of ads, it's mostly because of those dudes. They didn't really know how else to make money. There's a really good article by I want to say Megan Grimwell and short for Deadspin about this. Greenwell, I think that's really wrong. It's called The Adults in the Room. If anyone, would you mind if I just link?
All right, feel free to post like links, advertise yourself, everything like this. You've taken over my stream.
Okay, cool. Well, that's a really good article if you want to know more about like modern state of journalism and financing and how maybe things aren't working so well from a journalist. And Deadspin's, if you're familiar with them, kind of entertaining writing too. So you have the ads blocked so you don't see them. Well, that's certainly one way to deal with it. I will not admit to doing any of those things. I used to work for the advertising industry anyway. It's the same, maybe going back, it's the same reason games and movies are crap. Producers and investors know nothing about creating anything of value except for consolidating things and making sure you see the Star Wars. Yeah, I agree. It's kind of the story of why everything sucks, especially over this last decade. And I could talk about that financially too.
Leaving a Starbucks cup in the middle of a Game of Thrones scene.
Oh yeah,
I'm not sure if you've seen Game of Thrones, but that was funny.
I heard about that. So Game of Thrones is one of those things where like I kept hearing about it and having no idea what's going on. Like I'd be at parties just kind of quiet for that 5 minutes, But I did hear about the Starbucks cup. Also the healthcare industry. A lot of things are just really just being butchered so it could make more shareholder profit. And that's like journalism in a nutshell. So you can't really save the whole thing. But climate journalism is the thing you can focus on. And I think it's the thing we're focusing on and making entire outfits focused on it, the way we have the Wall Street Journal is focused financially on how everything is intertwined with global finance, right? So I would like to see things like that. And as far as, what, like I haven't set up the financial element, so I haven't really reached out. This is me reaching out and initiating that process, actually. So in terms of people to just kind of shout out and people that I would love to support, if I could ever get there, would be someone like Amy Westerfall. She does a podcast, Drilled. It's really good. She is a longtime journalist herself in print media. Drilled is an interesting podcast. I think it's been running for like 2 years.
I think I've been told about this. I feel like I have it like saved on my podcast list on Spotify, but I have yet to. Yeah.
It's really good. It's also like it's not like super newsy. It's more done in the vein of a true crime podcast, which are very popular. So it's like true crime, but how the oil and gas industry has like covered up they're doing through disinformation campaigns and stuff like that, and getting behind that. And it's really good. I recommend that. She basically started her own podcast network, Critical Frequency, to support things like herself and other sorts of journalism. So I think she's like one person that like knows that industry, already has visibility. The other person would be Emily Atkin and her Heated.
Oh yes, dude, I love her newsletter.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And this is like, Drilled is maybe like more for if you want like, and what I would want, like investigative journalism, like behind the scenes. Heated is maybe like more like broadly focused. So like you get it. And yeah,
Yeah, no, it's really good. Like she just, let's see, the recent one that went out the other day was having to do, crap, what was it? I've been so discombobulated with everything.
Did you read today's by any chance?
No, I haven't read today's yet. So this morning I like rolled out of bed. I was up late last night with following all the news and stuff because I was like talking with people in Discord and everything about it.
Yeah.
And then I slept in this morning and was like, oh my God, I have to... I'm streaming.
Thanks for waking up.
Yeah, no, I have to be here. It's my job. Thanks. Yeah, so I still need to go ahead and read her thing for this morning. So I'm looking forward to doing that after the stream.
Oh, this morning's really good. Just to like kind of talk about it, 'cause it's really interesting.
Yeah, go for it.
Apparently, like someone tweeted this yesterday, and there was research to find that like Exxon, I forget which company, I think it was Shell, but like they basically predicted the whole climate activist thing, right?
Oh, yeah. Activists. Wait, was that Chevron? Or no, Chevron just donated like $1 million.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, you have billions of dollars.
I think it was Exxon. Mm-hmm. Royal Dutch Shell. No, excuse me. So Shell. I didn't know they were called Royal Dutch Shell, but yeah. And yeah, like they've been planning for it since like I think the papers from the 90s, and they literally predict it to be like somewhere between the late 90s and 2020. We'll have like a wave of youth protests. They said it's going to be just like the tobacco protests or happening then, or like the movement to make cigarettes more legal. Mm-hmm. So yeah. It's a really interesting one. Like it's crazy to think that they've been thinking about this for as long as they have. So anyway, Emily Atkin does heat it. It's a really good newsletter. But like, there are some podcasts on climate and stuff, but like that's pretty much it as far as like pure journalism, I think. I mean, I'm sure I'm probably wrong about that, but I would love to see more. And I know like from the outside looking in, like most journalists are writing about how the journalism industry is just dying. Also, like even to speak of another thing that makes journalism difficult, like I don't know if anyone remembers Gawker.
Gawker?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so Gawker was like an interesting website. There was a lot of clickbaity BuzzFeed bullshit on Gawker, but there was a lot of also honest to God investigative journalism about like maybe people that wouldn't normally be treated as untoward actors immediately, like a Facebook, or most notably Peter Thiel, who I don't want to talk too much about like my personal life, but I was working at a website which handled the internet traffic for Gawker while they were getting historically DDoS attacked.
Oh no.
And I was just doing like the front end stuff. So like, which is like the website. So like everybody at work was waking up like 3 a.m. For like these literally like the craziest DDoS attacks that were 2016 in the run up to the election. Anyway, Gawker eventually got shut down because of that, because of a lawsuit over the whole Hulk Hogan thing, which is it's a really sticky kind of situation. But it was one of the few places that had in open or more open regard to just being straightforward as towards investigative journalism and being more honest, because they lack the profit model. They had this guy Nick Denton funding them, whereas now every newspaper is part of a consolidated investor group's holding firm portfolio, and they have to make as much profit as possible. So it's very questionable to me if the existing outfits, the mainstream outfits, CNN, New York Times, et cetera, are going to be honest actors or even do the investigative work necessary, given that they've been defunding the investigative work and taking a lot of money from the fossil fuel industry. I can also just give like a quick story about why I don't want to say don't trust journalism, but there are some easy ways to kind of predict where mainstream outfits aren't going to be great. And,
look for clickbait titles.
Actually, I was thinking before that. So like it's just the advertising. So one of the strongest like memories I have was, so I was in New York. I've been in New York for about 15 years, and I was here for Occupy Wall Street, starting my career in the advertising industry. So Occupy Wall Street's going down. I'm just following it on Twitter. Like I've learned, like if you want like the blow by blow, you're gonna have to be on Twitter at that time. And the protests had actually flooded all the way into Times Square. So I grew up in New Jersey. I'm from New York. Like Times Square doesn't just shut down. And if it shuts down, it's like New Year's or some shit, right? You may have planned protests and then they'll shut it down, but it's like kind of a coordinated thing, like not just a random bunch of people flooding in there. And that did happen during Occupy Wall Street. CNN at the time, their backdrop was literally Times Square. Like the glass behind Anderson Cooper was quite, like all he would have had to do was this, then you'd see a bunch of people if they focused on it. For some reason, they decided to not say anything about a huge mass of people in one of like the central parts of the world protesting. So, and then you can just watch the advertisements afterwards. There's going to be a lot of financial companies and banks and holding firms, et cetera, advertising largely to like CEOs and really rich people. So I think they have a profit motivation to kind of look the other way.
Yeah.
And as someone that's worked at like advertising firm type places, looking the other way is so easy for them, just like the type of people they are, which is to say, I don't think it's a conspiratorial action. I think it's more just fecklessness anyway, but it could be funded away. And that is kind of what I would like to do as far as climate journalism goes. Anyway, I've been talking for a long time. Any questions?
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I think there was, let me go ahead and pull it up. Greta was just this morning talking about how one international news, let's see, what was it? It was, oh, so 7 hours ago, I was talking about like, so far I've only heard of one single daily newspaper, the ETC, which it looks like it's in, I think it's in Switzerland. I don't just like the language looks Swiss, who has decided to exclude all advertisements regarding fossil products and services. So there's like there's a step that's been taken in, well, a little step, but I mean, still a good step nonetheless, that's been taken in not accepting money from, the fossil fuel industry, especially since
I see that.
Yeah. It
was a pretty big financial firm too. I forget who it was. And that's exactly what I want to see, to be honest. Because finance in general is like another reason why I'm doing this. And I can talk about that, but I have a lot of thoughts about how finance works. And I think someone said earlier, like Mooney Machine, hello, you angry poor, says million appear to be a lot of money to you. Like, I think it's an interesting statement because, like, so Thor, Chris Hemsworth, he donated $1 million to Australia. That's cool, but like he is literally worth like 120 million, I think.
Yeah.
And I hate those Marvel movies. I'm on Martin Scorsese's side, even though I'm a comic book fan, and the Thor movies are the only good ones. So I think he deserves it. Don't get me wrong. But the thing is, like, so I don't want to bore too much about like talking about finance or whatever, but like if you have money, meaning like even if you're just talking about investing for your retirement, like you're a normal person, you invest in index funds. Or mutual funds or 401ks or IRAs. And what those are, for people who don't know, it's just a grouping of stocks that perform very well such that you are guaranteed 5 to 10% kind of growth over year. And that's the normal approach for retirement. Anyone that's planning for their retirement is doing that. Funny thing is, before 2007, really rich, wealthy people used to do things like start businesses or invest in hedge funds, which had a lot of varied investments. But after 2007, like Warren Buffett, that guy, he makes a really famous proclamation to everyone, all the rich people. It says, look, hedge funds are stupid. They perform worse than these index funds. I know they're sexy because sometimes you can get 20% gains on a hedge fund, but an index fund's can actually be much better. And he proves that. That was about 12 years ago. And now I think just a couple months ago, we have more money in index funds than individual funds. So it's really easy to make 5 to 10% money, 5 to 10% on your money. You just have to have money in a bank account that you can put into like a betterment.com would be one of these mutual fund holding places, right? So anyway, going back to Chris Hemsworth, if he's worth 120 million, let's say it's 100 million, that means it's really, really like nice of us to say that he only has 25 million in index funds. He probably has a lot more. Yeah. But let's just be nice and say he only has 25 million. Let's say he makes 5%. And that number is, in a good economy, roughly the number that he could have after taxes on those capital gains. So if you have 25 million in a bank account, 5% of that, I think, is like 1.25 million. So if he gave $1 million to Australia, he pretty much gave the money that he made on this index fund for free over the last year. ... What's in that index fund? A lot of oil, anywhere from like 25 to 60% oil stocks. Also,
Dang.
a lot of purely American medical insurance and pharmaceutical company stocks too. And
Yeah.
you know how they make their money. So whenever you hear somebody say, "How do you pay for this?" What they're very wealthy. What they're saying is, "How do you pay for this? ... While I keep getting my free money from the oil and healthcare industry." So
Yeah.
$1 million may seem like a lot, but it's like taking the money that you make from burning the planet and putting it into water so you can stop it from burning a little bit, you know?
And then you keep taking the money that's still burning. Yeah.
And I can make it more depressing. You ready for it?
Go for it.
All right, cool. So in America, 45% of the country is in the stock market in some way. Like the majority are going to be just retirement fund holders. That's money. Let's stop thinking about money, because we all have these phones and Twitter accounts and stuff like that. Even email. When you see the little notification with the number in the red circle, you kind of get a little spike of emotion. We know that, right? And if it's a good thing, it's a heart. You're in your group chat, all your friends gave you the heart or whatever. Like, so you feel good. It's dopamine. I mean, I'm not making any points that haven't been made. Social media is like proven as something to be slightly addictive, right?
Yeah.
All right. Imagine if those likes were dollars, right? All right, so for the last 10 years or so, while people have had the internet to manage their money, most wealthy people and people who are retirees, meaning a lot of boomers and a lot of older people, they've been looking at their phones and seeing, oh, I just made a couple $100. I just made a couple $1,000. When you're retiring, you're making tens of thousands of dollars a month off that fund, and you're not really doing anything. I do think there's some argument to be made to say that why haven't we moved into climate change with more gusto, politically especially? I think a large population is frankly addicted the way you would be addicted to drugs or social media, to money that doesn't really represent their work. It just is investing and they get it back for free. And I think that's really scary.
There was someone that came into my stream before when I was hanging out in the politics category. We were talking, this is a couple weeks ago, I forget the exact topic, but they're Republican. And I was asking, I'm like, okay, so I'm assuming you're probably going to be voting for Trump. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, but can you tell me why? And like the first thing is all about the economy. Then I was like, okay, well, what do you really care about? And he's like, well, I'm really concerned about the climate. I'm really concerned about like healthcare for my kids and everything. But I'm voting for Trump because he's like good for the economy. And I'm just here like, you're literally talking like a Sanders supporter. But because of the way you view money, you want Trump, which is literally going against your morals and the way that you want to support your family and like your planet. And I mean, if you're even like looking at all of it too, it's like, has he really been that good for the economy? He's been good for like the people that are like up top, absolutely. But I mean, like, I like being in like middle class like Los Angeles area, like I haven't felt like any economic wonders. I mean, like, if anything, my fast food got slashed for my university. Like, you know,
I think it does go back to these index funds. Like, it's a very awkward thing to say, well, how much money do you have in index funds, right? You can't really ask that question. But like Pierce Brosnan had the same thing to say a little while ago. Kind of sucked. I liked GoldenEye growing up, very emotionally attached to the Nintendo 64 version of GoldenEye. But anyway, he said that, yeah, the same thing. Trump is, I know he's weird or whatever, but he's very good for the economy. And yeah, that dude's worth like 200 million somehow. So if you get a whole bunch of free money from this economy, you might feel really good about it. But here's the thing, like, even if you think you're set up for a good retirement now, you might not be. It's inflation of goods such as housing and food had passed inflation of the dollar, such that even your retirement account, should it make you feel good because you see the number going up, might not empirically actually be the right number that you would need to retire. especially when you put in climate change into the mix, right?
Oh yeah, like once we start looking at a potential water war or even potential food wars too. Like that's like I was joking. I was over on a Kiara Husk stream on Monday, and we were like, oh yeah, you know, like in our 80s. I'm like, well, I mean, provided we survive the water wars, and we're like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And the issue with soil erosion, which some people don't even want to like go ahead and like acknowledge. They're like, oh, agriculture is great, we keep subsidizing it. It's like, why do you think we have to keep subsidizing it? Because it's a failing system and we need better ways to do it. And if we don't have to keep subsidizing it all the time because they have better practices, then all that money that was being used to subsidize this could go into other things. Yeah, and so I was just here like, oh man, so we have an interstellar level dust bowl coming soon, and we have a drought. That's going to be wonderful.
And Australia is literally on fire right now. So
yeah, so that's, man, I've been seeing, it's been breaking my heart. I'm here like, I wish I had like the means to go out there and just be a volunteer firefighter. You know, I'm just here like, at this point, it doesn't even matter. It's like, just go and help people, you know.
It's so tough, and especially like, I don't know if you have streamers that are or people on your stream from like Australia. Just like,
I have a couple. I think Anya, I haven't seen her in a minute, but she was talking about how she's going to be volunteering, and I'm just here like, be safe, please be safe. Like, this is, it's crazy. That's the only word I have for it. I'm like, this is just crazy. Like, but
yeah, like someone from my chat, like that chat was just told me like, I can't really see 20 feet in front of me or 20 meters because of all the smog from this fire. And I was like, wow, can you breathe? He was like, oh no, I'm coughing like every 2 seconds. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, Sydney got a little bit of rain the other day, and someone recorded a video, like people were like actually like in the streets like cheering about it. And I'm like, that's some apocalyptic like stuff right there, where it's like you're literally just like, no, oh my gosh, thank you for the rain, you know, like.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything sucks.
The world is burning. It's fine though.
But like, here's the thing, and I do think of it through the lens of addiction, because it's the way I'm the most forgiving towards the wealthy or the rich. Because you know, guillotines and riots aren't anything for drones and cops. So like, it's not really. I don't, as angry as I am, it's just not something you can kind of convert to action, ... But if you think of them as like drug addicts, there's a really famous kind of experiment done on rats. And rats do share, you might be familiar with it, rats share like 90% of the human brain, right?
Oh yeah, rats are really cool.
Right, really cool, really smart, you know, totally want to be your friends anyway. But they did take an experiment where they got a bunch of rats addicted to drugs. So they put cocaine in water. They had the water jug with cocaine. They had a regular water jug, and basically like they all, like 9 out of 10 rats just became cocaine addicts. They just kept hitting up the cocaine water, right? So in another, that was considered the control. So in another cage, they put just a variety. They had the cocaine water, they kept it there, but they had like various fruit waters, like different types of little water, and then water, and then like only one of them became a cocaine addict. I mean, there was still some cocaine addiction. They all tried a little of the cocaine, I think, but like there wasn't any of like the negative effects of them, you know, being all tweaked out. I think they did start killing each other in the other cage.
There was like something I've said often on my stream before is like we fell in love with convenience, and it's convenience that will kill us. That's been like my motto whenever like I'm talking about it, because it's like there's been so many conversations with people that I've had about like single-use plastic and everything, and they're like, oh my gosh, like sorry.
It's okay.
I know that has definitely been a conspiracy post that's been going around from an uncredible news source. So, I mean, if you want to keep going and listening to their fun things like that, go for it. And even if there were a couple of arsonists, like, these fires are completely out of control. And the whole thing about it is that the conditions were so incredibly bad that it's gotten to this current level. So even if there is an arsonist or a couple arsonists, the fact that Australia is so dry and for this level of like fires to be happening, that's not normal. So And that's like the whole thing. So it doesn't, at this point, it's like, who fucking cares what started it? What matters is how bad it is. And it is definitely climate driven with how bad it actually is.
Yeah, society should be stronger than a few bad actors, even if that were the case. But I don't think there's any proof to say there's any kind of arson yet. Anyway, but I do want to kind of make us feel better. People are addicted to drugs and you're not.
I'm addicted to fruit water.
Fruit water is great. You hear about WeWork a lot, right?
WeWork, yeah. Every now and then I see it pop up on Twitter.
Oh, well, I've worked in a bunch, and generally, like, it was pretty easy to see them going into bankruptcy, but they had this amazing fruit water every morning. They, like, used to slice up fruit and just put it in this big water jug. It was the best. I really loved it. Anyway, sorry for that diversion. But so basically the thing is that, like, we have to make other things for people in society to kind of click into, and convenience, I heard WeWork. Yeah, it was really easy to see coming too, because like at that time, like I worked for a lot of startups in New York. It's either like you get a really ratty office, or somehow this WeWork place can give you all of this magical stuff.
And you're like, where's the money coming from for all this magical stuff?
And it was funny because a lot of the startups that end up renting out of the WeWork are also in that same debt cycle where they try to make something magical. I just never thought it would happen with real estate, but it did. Anyway, so it's just incumbent on society to make alternatives for people that I think we would expect to be leading us, the wealthy and the powerful. But I think in this current iteration of society, it's really hard for them to see past that index fund growth. That's why you'll see people like Tom Steyer get on the stage and say things like, he's really talks a big game about climate change, but then he'll say we need to make solar and wind more profitable or competitive with oil. You just can't do that. Like you put oil in a jar or whatever, a barrel, and you sell it like it's a commodity. Like the only way you could do that with solar or wind is to say, okay, I own the sun, and you're gonna have to
I own the Dyson sphere.
But like considering the the legal purpose to which legal premise to which that we own a lot of oil fields outside of America, or at least percentages of them, I don't think it's really impossible to say like there's a certain government that would say, okay, and then if there's an army, we'd have to start paying rentier's fee to Elon Musk for the sun. Anyway, so the thing is we have to work through the government, right? Yeah. That is like, it's collectivism that is the only thing that's going to get us out of this. It's essentially what got us into this. So journalism is great in that it kind of exposes more of the truth. It gets more people in there, and it's just vastly underfunded, and part of the reason why we're in this mess. And anyway, right?
Oh yeah, like there's a huge problem with just U.S. media, and this is something. So I've been reading a book. So I found this at Barnes and Noble, and it shows reversed on here, but so how to change minds about a changing climate, and it just addresses the biggest environmental skeptic arguments, and I'm here I've already heard all of these. But it provides a refutation that isn't yeah. And okay, where was I even going with this now? I was like, this is important. Why? Oh my god. Damn it.
We're talking about journalism.
We were talking about journalism. Oh, okay. So we're talking about United States journalism has a habit of trying to show both sides, even if both sides, it was talking about consensus, how a lot of people there's not a whole lot of scientific consensus about climate change. And it's but because a lot of the media is in order to stay unbiased, we'll take even the smallest percentage of anything that doubts it and give it the same amount of media time as we do with things that are actually proven. You see that with the anti-vax movement. And so I compared it's we've given a lot of the same time for the anti-vaxxers as we have for those that are advocating for climate skepticism or trying to push information that is false, because it's we have to show both sides. And it's but there's no sides. There's people that don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And then a global consensus, as shown at the UN and the IPCC, for what's happening. So it's a huge fault on the American media for the way that we're trying to be like, well, I mean, like, if there's even one person in the entire world that disagrees, we have to show their side. And it's like, no, you don't. You really don't. And like, we need to stop feeding into, yeah.
Well, have you ever heard of manufacturing consent?
No, what is this?
So I'll leave a little link. It's it refers to a book written by Noam Chomsky and someone else who'd heard of Noam Chomsky, and he wrote it in like I think the early '80s, maybe the late '80s.
I'll put
and
this
it
on my
was
to
based.
read list.
Yeah, and like there's a lot of, it's maybe not super well written, which might be why I didn't disseminate, but there's a lot of really good like videos and stuff going into it too. I have not read the book. So I'm kind of aware of the theory and all that, but I'm just kind of giving that disclaimer. But it does kind of, it's kind of a theory of how the media discusses certain things and not other things. So both sides like is interesting because it seems like there's two sides, but like they could be cutting out 85 different sides and you wouldn't know. Yeah. Like it's the choosing of what is important and what isn't is highly influenced by the types of people that work at these kind of places, which is generally a hiring metric. So really at the higher point of hire for most journalistic entities or news entities, there's kind of an accepted set of things that you can talk about and can't talk about. Like maybe at the time of writing, he's more referring to, not really. I mean, like he himself would identify as a libertarian socialist, I believe, or communist maybe, but
those dang commies.
But like that, like you couldn't get a job working in a mainstream media outfit if you didn't say that somehow. Like, or like if someone couldn't say that and your reaction was just to kind of chuckle and whatever, just like that is, but that like, that's a very kind of key thing about American life. I could, when I was really young in like fourth grade in elementary school, the New Jersey Devils were going to like the Stanley Cup, I think, and they were playing the Detroit Red Wings. And the Detroit Red Wings had like, they called them the Iron Front because it's for the center and the two wings were Russians. And so we asked like the school janitor like who he was rooting for. And, like, it was the first time I heard an adult curse, so I always remembered it. He said, "Never gonna root for those fucking commies." And just,
oh my god!
We all looked at me like, wow. Okay.
It's like like it's I get called a commie like almost every time I stream, just because like I say like, oh, I'm for people and planet. They're like, well, then you're just a communist, and I'm here like, I'm actually a democratic socialist if you want to be really specific about my political alignment, but I always just say I'm for people and planet, because I've always said like if whatever, like the day that like we have a blood moon or something and we have a conservative representative that is more for people and planet than the right or the left, then I'd be like, yeah, of course I'd vote for them. Because like my concern is like people and a planet. I don't care about party names or like that kind of thing. It's like, as long as you're a decent human being, support women's rights, support like all, you know, but unfortunately that is only falling onto the left right now, and the right has, I don't know what happened with them. Like it's,
yeah, I have a theory. So like if there's anyone right wing in chat, I don't care what you have to say first. But if you look up the origins of the left wing, right wing spectrum kind of definition, it goes back to the French Revolution. Like Les Mis and shit, right? The right, it's just, there was a parliamentary thing, the parliament, right? And the people on the right side of it were for the royalists. They were for keeping the queen and king in power and all that kind of stuff, right? And the people to the left weren't. It just kind of happened. And then like they noted how like you couldn't even sit on the other side without getting yelled at, yada, yada, because there was the whole French Revolution that kind of came out of that. So that is the origins of the left-right spectrum. The right is for royalty. So if America was to be founded after getting away from royalty and feudalism, I kind of see the notion of anything quote unquote right wing as pushing back to royalty and feudalism, and thus anti-American. That's right, I said it. You terrorists. Anyway, sorry.
No, I'm in complete agreement. Like there are some people that I've talked about, you know, especially as we're seeing with Trump, how so many people are like rising up and being like, we want him in forever in this. And I'm here like, you do realize that's not American at all. Like we're literally, you're literally advocating for us to go back to a time where we've fought a big ass war to get away from. But then they're like, oh, but then you're just against America and you need to go to Venezuela because you're communist. And I'm like,
well, see, I think it's kind of interesting. And you hit the point right there. Like our current extreme right wing seems to be a lot like setting up a feudal kind of king system or royalty system, right?
Yeah.
Right down to ignoring that this guy might be naked or just a dumbass or whatever you want to say. And I think along with the whole right wing, left wing thing, the most extreme right wing kind of thing that you can maybe intellectually conceptualize or hear out there is anarcho-capitalism. Is that? Okay, no one,
I haven't come across that term yet.
Okay, well, if anyone says anarcho-capitalism, they're probably going to call you a commie too. But anyway, so that the idea is like no state. There is no state or anything. It's just ownership. And like you talk to these people, and you basically always get to the point where some kind of Mad Max situation is going to happen. There's nothing to stop someone from just violently gathering other people and then stealing land and then doing
Got it.
thing. And then reinstituting feudalism. There's so I do think the idea of like extreme independent freedom or extreme libertarianism to kind of abolish the state, or as like Steve Bannon said, I think like deconstruct the administrative state. The purpose is such to get rid of the only apparatus that exists that would prevent feudalism, and that is democracy. So that's my conceptualization of like, I'm not against republicanism I'm not against conservatism as an ideology, maybe if people were actually strict to their ideology, but I do think the right wing has revealed itself to just be a spectrum of feudal living and something we've been trying to get to since Roman times, really, which is something more democratic.
Yeah,
anyway,
that's something that my like academic advisor and I have been talking about. So my major is Asian studies with China and Japan. So I'm just here like, oh boy, like I'm like learning all this history. I'm like looking at America like, then, my minor is environmental science and policy, and I'm still trying to figure out my field for grad school, because it's like you could literally drop me in anything in the earth sciences and I would have a blast. But they're like, well, you need to have a statement of purpose for the specific thesis. And I'm here like, I don't know. I could study cyclones or volcanoes or like I could do everything. Like, just give it to me. Just drop me in a job. So thankfully, so total tangent there. I know a couple of people I'm networking with, so I might not even have to like go and narrow down my scope of whatever by going into grad school. I can probably just go directly into the field, which is really what I'm hoping for, and then I can branch off from there. But yeah, so he was talking about how within the next 150 years or so, that's like his prediction, that the states, if we don't like correct our trajectory now, we are going to end up in another like feudal system. And because he was saying, you could
argue that we're already there too.
Oh yeah, like we're definitely
land ownership, it's corporate ownership, but yeah.
I mean, the moment that we acknowledge that like corporations are people, like that weird thing, it's like, oh yeah, corporations can act as like people, like that's like, okay, that's wonderful, thanks. But like a lot of the factors of it is because, if you look at like how shitty our education system is, people aren't taught to critically think anymore. Same with the way that the media is, like literally everything that is being cultivated and brewed in the States, from education to keeping the poor to the consistent warmongering to the way that we have been investing our finances and everything as well, is just leading us into a spot where we're going to have to be like, hey, like we need some dictator to do something because we're not getting anything done. And I'm just here like, and you said you were all
right, so we're going to change all that. The game's going to do it. Let's get back to that if I can. I want to talk about so we talked about funding journalism and what I'm looking for there. I also want to talk about funding activism and what that means. So like I think that's pretty obvious. Like groups like Sunrise or This Is 0 Hour, if you've heard of them, like the youth activist movements, I think are great. Sunrise had a really good video that they put out yesterday.
They put out a video yesterday?
Where they were kind of talking about like their approach, and they brought up an interesting point where like based on research, only like 3.5% of any given population needs to really be actively protesting to kind of tilt a government way. So like that's a very achievable percentage. It's kind of hard in America, but like in India right now is a general strike going on, which I think is definitely that percent of the population, if not more. So that's a good goal, but I think they obviously need support. So this would be a way to support them through that financial model. And like, if you think about, if anybody has on the Sunrise email newsletter or any kind of government newsletter, like political thing, like, you get the email every day telling you the world's burning. It's really horrible. They ask you for money. And then like maybe the 5th email, the 10th email, whatever, you do give money. So a free to play game is the same approach pretty much. It's just, instead of scaring you in your email, it's just, you play the game, and maybe on your 10th hour, you throw some money to it. So this would put that money towards those groups. And just to talk about how that would work, if you can set up credit card transactions to cut it at a percentage right at the point of the digital swipe, so to speak. So that's how like GoFundMe or one of those sites works. It's not really that hard. Like you tip them, and then you see one transaction on your card, but it goes to GoFundMe as well as whoever you're funding. So this would be the same exact principle. It's fuzzy on how that would work in terms of, do you get to choose whom? I would like to maybe institute that. Would it be better to split it across everything? I'm not sure. So I'd have to kind of work my way further. But the other thing that I'd like to focus on is like that on-the-ground activism. Sunrise, for example, focuses on that, as well as putting pressure in certain electoral districts when there is an election that can be tilted. But the other thing that I would really like to fund is how the wealthy do write the legislation in this country. If I could like kind of, I don't have the clip, I could have gotten it ready, but there's just one clip of Hillary Clinton in 2016, and she meets with some of the organizers from Black Lives Matter, right? So like young Black kids, like they're teenagers, they might be in their early 20s, like they're young, and they're talking to her, it's on video. And it's a little bit contentious, right? And at one point, like, she's interrupting them. She's saying, "I need you to give me legislation. Like, you need to give me legislation." And I'm just like, "What the fuck is that? You were a senator, first lady, and you have a history of writing legislation, apparently, with your husband in Arkansas and all that." But to be truthful, it's just how the way the world works these days. Most of the legislation you see is actually written by think tanks. The first few drafts are going to be composed by them. And then lobbyists who are just lawyers with credentials to literally be in the lobbies of Congress kind of chase down congressional leaders and say, this is what you need to do. And they also set up little days to talk and all that kind of stuff, right? And it's all recorded. So like that is technically all in the up and up. Like Citizens United makes it a lot of it more legal than it should be. And there's also just a lot of other, if it's not illegal, there aren't laws really against it. And all of those lobbyists are corporations right now. There are very few, if any, grassroots funded lobbyists that correlate back to these groups. And I would like to have that. Like that is something that a think tank would do. It's finding a climate focused think tank that would not accept money from corporations. It is possible. There are groups outside of climate that are focused on, non-corporate think tanks like Data for Progress. There's one that Matt Brunig works for. And then the People's Policy Project is another good one. So there are groups that do this sort of stuff, but not totally climate focused. And I would really like that, because if you could have journalism, on the ground activism, and basically congressional activism in the form of writing legislation and lobbying, you have a way to echo all that out to support it. So once it is up for a vote or is a matter of political debate, you can know all about it from the journalism. But you can also feel confident that the laws being written aren't, including sentences to say that, sure, you can pollute in this town or whatever, like that it could be a little bit more toward, and that there are people with more pure intent, like they're using your money, not the money from this game, rather, not the money from a big corporation. And I know that might seem crazy, but if you look at the numbers that companies spend on this kind of stuff, it's not that much money. They're going to be spending a lot more, don't get me wrong, but it is something achievable via gaming, which seems kind of weird, but that's kind of what I want to do. And I kind of explained the why. Like, I don't think anyone that has money is going to step up and do anything. So it really is going to come up to us. So I could show the game if you want to look at that.
Yeah, go for it. I think it lets you screen share, right? Or do you want me to go ahead and pull it up?
I can screen share. Let's see. There we go. You don't see me anymore, do you?
Oh, no, I see the game. Cool.
Okay, cool. So,
it's like you know your way around the game.
Basically, yeah. If you log in, like, you're just going to see this. If you log in fresh, you'd see, like, no farm. It's a lot like Stardew or Harvest. It's a prototype, so this is not internet bound. If anybody does want to try this out, you can. you'd start out here. It's not going to be obvious what to do, but if you walk over to this area, you'll go to like the starter town. So, I have some a town going on here. This is Sakana. They're going to have the clothes you can buy, a little clothing store going on. It's going to get dark, so I chose like the wrong time to be here. But I also like to have like a little bit of an intention of the story for the game, and how certain things will work that are different. What to talk about first? There's like basically it is just a farming game. It's supposed to be utopia, so everything's chill, but the conflicts are going to be around basically people trying to bullshit their way out of the utopia, such to create inequalities in society by leveraging generally other people's work in their favor. So there's this character, Gil Bates. He has a company called Dorkersoft, and he's going to constantly be trying to introduce policies for everybody that magically make him more money at the expense of society. So, that's going to be one set of missions, and he's going to be countered by characters like Baff and York. They represent the Carta police. They don't arrest anything or anybody or anything violent. They basically just talk to bad faith actors and shenaniganry and stop people like Gil Bates from doing dumb things. So it kind of is just to encourage the idea of interrogating people that may not be totally toward. And I want to kind of expand the world based on that. I'm not exactly a game writer, so ideally I would like to try to have the game stories be an MMO kind of composed of different stories. And really kind of grow it out from there, around the basic idea of farming. So you can buy and sell seeds, and the other area outside of a town is a community farm. So I think I kind of showed you lightly the farm that you would start out with. That's your own farm. There's just a handful of plants right now I'm working on crafting and stuff. But the thing that I kind of wrapped up is it's still kind of buggy area called the community farm. So if you walk out here, it's a little weird, and there's a moat system blocking people off. But basically, if you were to come here while someone else was signed off, like you'd have a farm load up from the database where you can kind of show off your own stuff. And there'd hopefully be other people around there, and I could kind of gamify the things here. So like if you grow a certain plant next to someone else growing another plant, like, it's a better yield or something like that, right? But this is really just early days where all of this stuff works on the internet, and that's basically what I've been working on. This all is running on a live server. I'm using, for not to be too nerdy, if you have any questions, I'll try to stream and I can kind of answer stuff, but I'm using something called Nakama to scale the back end. So I do feel pretty confident about it being able to scale, but obviously I have a lot of just content to make. And I basically have to spend the last years just making like base systems. You can also kind of change the color of your clothes, and this would be a way to make a business model. So that's what I got so far. Not much, obviously, in terms of gameplay, but I'm really working on that. Hopefully over the next few months. And that's it. If anybody wants to try it out for whatever it is worth, there's a website available, but otherwise, tell your friends.
Yeah, like my first thing, I'm like, oh, like if you want to make it, that this is just like my brain like buzzing, I'm like, oh, like I wonder, like, are you thinking of putting in like some like environmental consequence, like if these policies like do get passed and then like a drought happens, or like
so like when I
that kind of thing?
When I started thinking about this, like I was thinking like, yeah, climate dystopia, like very used to dystopias in games and stuff, but like every time I started to sit down and like think about how that would look, I started getting more depressed. And like most games, like just gaming in general, like the dystopia is such a normal thing, right? So I kind of thought like, what would a utopia look like? And like, obviously I'm defanging the concept of conflict, but I think that could be kind of okay in an MMO, which is focused on farming. I also like the next thing on my schedule to kind of do is get to crafting. So I wanted to make it so there'll be an area where trees are grown responsibly, and you chop them and you put them in this thing called a reatomizer, which just makes anything out of trees. A little magical, but it's the future. So basically it's just a way to have like scarecrows and things on your farm to kind of make it more personalized. But after that, after getting the basic Harvest Moon kind of elements and putting in a little bit of mission-based content, what I really want to do is have kind of an animal thing where have you ever played Pokemon on the
Yes.
Game Boy? Yeah, okay. So things basically the Pokemon fight scene, right? Or your Pokemon's fight, except it would be you meeting an animal in the wild and you try to feed it and be nice, and maybe it lets you pet it, maybe it eats your food, and then you just kind of get a reputation with the animals, they have names, and there could be dice rolls where certain animals get along with certain players more and stuff like that, in real life. And
That'd
stuff
be
like that.
so cute.
A whole set of different little mini games to support kind of just being around, and then basically have the main thing to spend money on, although there should be different things like stuff to buy for your farm, but also outfits from Sakana, and then real world money. And this is heavily borrowing from Warframe, which is a great free to play game if anyone likes kind of third person action games. They basically make a lot of their money off just selling color palettes, which can customize the outfits. So that is what I'm hoping to make a business model out of. So all the content would be free, but the thing you would pay for that would back it would be these color palettes for the most part, and maybe some items and other things, right? So that's the idea, and it's crazy, but if it could scale to the size that a Stardew Valley scales at, it would be amazing. That game made 25 million in its first year. If you could take 60% of that would be crazy. But games like Path of Exile and Warframe, which are free to play games like this, their business model can make up to 9 figures. I think both of those games have made 800 million, in a year. So if you can imagine 60 million going to journalism and activism, it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to imagine a Green New Deal. And then really the idea is also, it's really hard to be an activist, right? If you watch that Sunrise video that I sent, there's this portion where they're literally not fighting with security guards more or less, and you got to do shit like that. And I'm not discouraging it. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. I'm just saying I know for a fact a lot of people wouldn't. That's why it's only 3.5%. So I think, and a lot of people are disabled. A lot of people may have arrest records and things. There may be legitimate reasons, or you might not be able to afford an arrest and bail and all that. So there are legitimate reasons that protest is difficult. So this is another big reason that I'm kind of hoping to put this game together and have it scale. So it could be a way to scale the protest.
Yeah, Mooney had a question. So Mooney's been popping up with ideas and questions here. So he's asking if you're using Defold, was his first question.
I don't know what Defold is. If you're a programmer, I'm using Godot for the game engine and Nakama for the back end. I'm not really sure what Defold is, so no, I'm not.
And then looks like some recommend thing here was saying maybe the more animals you collect, the better and healthier your farm can be, to encourage the concept of biodiversity and permaculture. You might get snails all over your farm, so you have to catch a duck to keep nearby.
Oh yeah, that's I was thinking of something like that, Mooney, as well. If it could maybe be a community thing where maybe if enough people aren't feeding the right animals, and those animals start eating plants from people's farms, and you have to kind of go out there, and stuff like that. But yeah, I think you're hitting on a biodiversity. There was kind of a scientific concept I wanted to bring up, which is also as it pertains to kind of organization. It pertains to, science as well as organization theory and concepts like anarchy. It's the idea of mutual aid. You look it up. So instead of charity or labor, where you have a boss that pays you to do something, or you have the idea of charity where I'm gifting this thing, so now you have the ability to do things. Mutual aid is I'm doing a thing that can help you, so you can do things that can help me, which is a lot more true of how society works when you take out the profit model. You don't have to scale things to purely profit for people that aren't really doing anything. So if you think about a free to play game, you're actually committing a form of labor for that company. Like they have a dollar value on your free to play hour because you're bringing in other people. Like in theory, if we're all playing this game, like we see other people, and that's the kind of thing that motivates us to play this, right? So if you are doing a kind of like underhanded free labor for these companies, I'm not saying that you are, please keep playing Path of Exile, Warframe, etc., Fortnite, yada. But why not have that same concept work towards fundraising for the things that have been denied money from finance systems? So that's kind of the idea in a nutshell.
I like it a lot.
Cool.
I'm just here like, I can't wait until like it's all done.
So I'm hopeful to like have something in a year with like content, but like at this point I'm trying to like reach out, show people, get some kind of audience. I personally, I've been making it mostly on the side, but also just kind of throwing my own savings. I have no guilt about oil money in my life anymore, but I do have a lot of nausea about giving up that sweet, sweet oil money. I do have to be honest with y'all. But, you know, I put it mostly in this game. And I'm going back to work in a couple of weeks because I do need money. So, you know, there's that. But if you really want to help, you know, share it with your friends, talk, Twitter, that whole thing. I have a Patreon, and I'll be slowly trying to fundraise for that.
Plug all your here.
Oh, thank you. This is like the part that I'm really bad at and like not thrilled about. Like I just want to make the game. I'm not very good at like making content and putting myself
like,
on the internet.
How do I advertise? And it's like, I got you, man.
Thank you. Is it just copy pasting?
No, literally just copy pasting. Bam.
Oh my god.
There's Twitch, the site, the Patreon. Let's see, what's your like minimum Patreon tier?
Oh, I think I made it like $2. I literally just set this up a few weeks ago, so.
Oh, you typoed Patreon in your
Oh, shut up.
Yeah, in your link thing. I was like, why isn't it working? Ignore that first. Ignore the Patreon link. It was a typo on his page.
Is this on the website? Oh no.
Yeah, so in your stream, when you under support, it says Patreon, but the link is Patreon.
Okay, I can fix that real quick. I thought you meant on the website or like the game website. Perfect. It's fine.
If you have a Patreon link on the website, might want to check that just in. No, Patreon website is.
Yeah.
Donate to Patreon for.
I feel like Patreon's a great like scam Patreon. I feel like I should also just buy that URL anyway. Yeah, that's me. So I think I have 2, 5, 10. I have a $500 per month thing where you get absolutely nothing. Just in case you feel guilty about the money you're making, you know, just hoping someone.
Capital gains robber, baron investor. Yes. Awesome. Maybe.
Anyway, yes, that's the game. Any questions, etc. I am here for you. But otherwise, that's pretty much it.
I'm here like, I can't wait for it to be done next year.
Well, I'm hoping to, you know, have something more playable before that. So like even within like a 3 to 6 month frame, like I think I just would need more stuff for you to craft and do. Oh, fishing, of course. I think that every game needs a fishing game. So that's something to throw in there as well. So like there's some content. I'm hoping to have some more content soon. I'll start streaming steadily. I kind of took a break over the holidays, as people are wont to do. I think I might be a morning streamer, like a real early, like 4:30 a.m. kind of.
Oh my god.
So I don't know if that's really going to work for anybody, but I'll try to stream in the week.
I mean, you'll get an EU audience that way, like the other side. Yeah.
It's just so weird because like I've now streamed at like 3 different times, and every time you change your stream time, you have to like build up your audience all over again.
Yeah, I've been feeling that with college. I'm just like, all right, can't wait till I graduate because then like my schedule can just be consistent. But yeah, no, I went from was it Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday nights, and I was like, okay, Wednesday night, Friday, Saturday morning. Once I start the semester, I'm like, oh man, like. Yeah, so I'm definitely looking forward to this, and like feel free anytime you want to come back on, like when you have like updates with the game, DM me. I have no problems with you coming on and bragging about your project and advertising. I think it's amazing, and I love what you want to be doing with this, and I really want to play it.
Cool, thanks so much. Yeah, and also like if anybody knows like other places that maybe would be interested in having me yak about it. That would be cool. As well as like if you know people that are affiliated to anything like those groups I talked about, either journalists or activists, always looking to connect there, and kind of. It's not something I've really held a good amount of outreach for too, so just kind of putting it out there. But anyway, thanks so much.
Yeah, and for sure, like I've been trying to network with like more people myself, you know, because I'm like, all right, I did like no collabs last year. I'm like, okay, this year I need to do more collaborations. So if I find a connection that would work for you, I'll go ahead and like, I'll try to get you guys connected.
Cool. I not to be nosy, I saw Mike from PA was following you on Twitter. That's a really cool follow.
Yeah. Oh, because it's funny story. So I had dinner with him at TwitchCon.
Okay.
I got invited to the political streamer dinner when I like literally just I got into the politics category, like the tag, because it was still a hashtag or category tag then. And Eva, I think it was Eva that invited me. Or yeah, I got added to like a group chat and I was like, oh, I'll come, sure. And so I got to meet like Destiny and Mike and Justin and Eva and Bad Bunny and everyone. And I'm here like I'm sitting at a table of like the people. Oh my God.
Oh God, I don't want to Destiny anyway.
Yeah, that it was interesting. We were in a Thai restaurant.
That was a while ago though, right?
Yeah, that was September of 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so not that long ago.
Yeah, anyway, not that long. And I got to meet Denims, and she's a sweetheart. So it was nice talking with her. Yeah, I sat directly across from Justin, and then Denim sat across from my husband, and then I'm Really Important was also there. So we got to like talk, and so it's great. And I'm just all right. I got to like earn my position at this table now.
That's really cool. I'm only familiar from Mike from PA because I'm a big fan of Sam Cedar's Majority Report podcast. Although I'm very new to the podcast world myself. So anyway, but yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out. Good luck, and I hope your day is fantastic today, despite everything that's going on in the world.
Well, you know, it'll keep going. I'll tell you that much.
It'll keep spinning. All right. Thank you so much, Noise. I look forward to talking to you soon.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye.